the highway might be the reason why you do or do not buy a Hummer H1. Earlier this week, we had a real bruiser in the driveway, the S65 AMG, the V12 bi-turbo highway monster. Today we've got a different monster. This is a 2003 Hummer H1, and it's got a 6.5 liter turbo diesel that, all right, it won't knock your socks off in a straight line, but holy cow, does it make some cool noises. I love having a slow car to review because it doesn't mean I have to risk my license to do it. So let's take a walk around this thing. First of all, this is my favorite body style of the Hummer. It's so practical, its proportions are incredible, and even though it's very intimidating and outrageous, it kind of has like a, I don't know, a subtle look to it. There's something about it. Now, when I was a kid, my first Hummer, yikes, the first H1 experience I had was in like 1993. It was kind of a decommissioned Desert Storm car that my dad's friend had. And it wasn't good. It was fun and it was definitely a Hummer, but it wasn't comfortable. It was always broken. And it was definitely just a statement of big dick energy. Whereas this, now I'm starting to get it. Like this car, after driving it around for a little while, it's fun. I get why you would want a variety in your garage. But inside, it's largely the same as those old ones were. Maybe slightly more creature comforts with like a decent radio and touchscreen and all that stuff. But, you know, it's still the same interior. You've got this monster cabin here that, you know, you basically can't reach your passengers. So this is great if you've got kids who won't stop poking each other. They can't poke each other in here. Up in the cockpit, it really feels like you're in like a 747. You come up here and it's like mission control. It would be really cool if there were like buttons and all kinds of stuff up here, but that's fine. We'll let it slide because there are buttons everywhere else. So here you've got your tire pressure because you've got beadlock tires. That's going to allow you to change, inflate, deflate your tires depending on the situation. So right now, they're pretty high pressure in order to drive on the road. But you can lower those if you wanted to go in sand or dirt or mud or anything like that. Then you've got all your drivetrain controls. So you've got obviously an e-brake and then high and low gears for rock crawling or off-roading and your gear selector. So old school, you've got your overdrive. I don't know how old you guys are, but back in the day, especially GM vehicles, you'd have a drive and an overdrive with the circle around it, and that would just allow you to get into fourth gear. So I think this is a 3-speed automatic gearbox, and that gives you the fourth. And you'll notice the Momo steering wheel, not the typical Hummer wheel. I thought this was kind of funny at first, but actually I really like it. It fits the car, and the steering in this car is really great, which you're going to find out when we drive it. Who knew? Who knew? This also comes equipped with like this little kid seat, which is kind of, yeah, very much a little kid seat. If I sit here, try not to kick anything. I'm very cramped. This is not a place I would want to spend more than exactly this much time in. So I'm going to get down. And I believe it has night vision. I just noticed this when I brought it home. So this looks like some sort of night vision or infrared camera. And I think it's like a heads-up display thing displayed right there. I don't know how to use it. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to burn it out because it's sunlight. All right. Cool features. Number one, you've got these great running board things, but the problem with that is, if you notice, they stick out beyond the car. That's the, other than the mirrors, that's the widest part on the car, which means that if I were to like drive this up my driveway, I run the risk of thinking, oh good, I've cleared my brush bar, but I might drag those on my M5. So it stays here. Because we've got portal axles, right? These guys right here. These allow you to have a super high ground clearance because you don't have to have the axle in the middle. And that also means that you've got to relocate your brakes. So this has central brakes, the inboard brakes. So if you have to do a brake job, that's a probable pain in the ass. I'm not going to lower this because I don't really know how. I'm sure I could figure it out, but it's not my truck and he's not here, so I'm not going to mess it up. But in order to open this, you've got to lower this brush guard, and then you unstrap, bring it back, intake, ready for submerged off-road use. So as long as you keep this, I guess, above the water by there, you should be good to go. And you'll also notice this monster roof rack, which is super cool and Actually, the owner of this car has a Nissan Figaro. So remember when I told you about having diversity in your car collection? A tiny little Nissan Figaro, but he actually put it on the roof of this Hummer. Hopefully he lets me use a picture here because it's so cool. Didn't really drive around with it because there's a lot of risk involved there. I don't recommend you do that. And you can pretty much see where it was. So I think there's even some, some bending on these little slats where the tires were. Super cool. 50 gallons of fuel, obviously diesel from the 6.5 liter turbo diesel. And you can fill up both the main and auxiliary tanks right there. This is what I think, this is the coolest part about this body style, is that you end up, and don't worry, I'm not going to smash this on this ladder. There's a little rubber guy right here, so you can do that. Good thought. But yeah, there's so much room in here that you can, you can do your off-road excursion, put your tents, your bags, whatever, just fill this up. And I promise you, it doesn't matter that you've blocked the entire view because you basically can't see anything from that rear view mirror anyway. You can tell that the outside world exists there, but that's about it. Thankfully, it has a reverse camera, and that is located right here. That is like the most important thing on this truck, because when you're driving an 8,000 pound military vehicle, the last thing you want to do is hurt anybody or run anybody over. Another thing to note is this exhaust, this massive 3-inch, I think, exhaust that comes up and around this rear wheel. And every time you start the car, I shouldn't call it a car. It's not a car. It's a monster truck. You're going to get a big puff of diesel. So I would recommend, if you don't want to smell like it, keep your door closed and the window up. Lessons learned. And if there's any Hey Arnold fans watching, this is Big Bob's Hummer in the Alien episode from Halloween, Arnold's Halloween. So when you start it, you're going to go ahead, let those glow plugs warm up. And once that weight goes off, big puff of diesel smoke out the back. Got to be very aware of how much of the road you're taking up. This is ridiculous. I feel like when there's oncoming traffic and somebody on the side of the road, it's the most dangerous thing you could be in. You've definitely just got to give up and slow down and make sure that you're giving room, because you're always checking your mirror to see where you are on that fog line. This weighs about 8,000 pounds, and you're going to win every fight, which means that you're going to have to clean up the aftermath. The brakes are surprisingly positive and not terrifying. I thought stopping this thing would be very scary. Overall, 40 to 50 miles an hour is where this thing is very comfortable. I've had it on the highway, and we're going to do that in a little bit. Once you get it up around 60 to 70, that's pretty much topping it out. 70 miles an hour is not a comfortable place to be in the H1. 65 is a nice place to be. It's very bouncy and bumpy. You can watch the hood shake up and down, and everybody stares at you as they pass you, because they will be passing you. I got lucky and had some trucks in front of me earlier, and that allowed me to just follow behind a slow truck doing 65, so I wasn't the reason that traffic was slow. See, here's a pedestrian. It's like, that's the scariest thing that can happen in this truck. So if that guy's coming at you and you've got a pedestrian, It's just unbelievable. This is very unnerving. Yeah, like I don't know this well enough to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go cross this bridge. No thanks. I can make it, but not my truck. Not my risk. See, this is what scares me. But as long as you're aware of what you're driving, the same way that you might be aware of like the front lip on a supercar when you're entering and exiting steep driveways, you just do the same thing with the Hummer, where you make sure like, hey, don't clip anything. If you clip something, you've destroyed it, I'm sure. What I'm most surprised by is just how easy it is to drive. I think once you get over the size of it and you're not overwhelmed by just the sheer ridiculousness of driving a Hummer H1 on a street, it's not bad. It holds the road nicely. When I first started driving it, I think I was afraid to go like 30 miles an hour. Now, I mean, not to be overconfident, but I feel like I can drive it at normal speeds and go 5 over and not be overly concerned with its placement on the road. It just takes a little bit of learning. I think if you drive trucks, I mean, I don't really drive trucks, so if you drive trucks, it probably wouldn't take you that long. And I'm quite thankful to be driving something that doesn't require me to go super fast to show off. But you want to make sure when you're coming around like blind corners like that, you don't just send it, because if someone's coming around the other way and they can't stop, you're probably just going to kill them. And I can't begin to describe how appreciative I am of the guy who loaned it to me, because he didn't really tell me much about it. I think if I was giving this car to somebody, I'd be like panicked. I'd be like, please don't kill anybody. This is what you need to do. He just kind of like tossed me the keys, said, yep, that's how you start it. End of story, which I really appreciate. It gives me time to learn exactly what it's like to drive and let the car tell me how to drive it. The highway might be the reason why you do or do not buy a Hummer H1. If you need to travel on the highway, it's not the best experience. You had like a cool mountain house up in Vermont or New Hampshire or somewhere, and you thought you were going to be driving this back and forth from the city, you probably just want to leave this up there. There's 60, overdrive. 65 to 70 is probably as fast as you really want to go. So everyone's going to be passing you. It's not that it can't do it, but A, you don't want to over rev it. I mean, there's no need to have that going crazy. The other thing is, I mean, you've got these monster tires. You can only balance that so well. It's relatively comfortable, but you can also see just everything shaking up there. So, you know, you're going to get passed by everybody, unless you're a speed demon, in which case, you know, have fun. I've got tractor trailers behind me, and I kind of just pray that those guys are going to be in front of me going 65, so that way they're the slow ones, not me. And I'm likely the only person driving a Hummer H1 listening to local public radio. The thoughts that go through my head while I'm driving this on the highway are like, how hot do portal gears get? And man, I really appreciate those National Guard convoys that you see in July when you have all those Humvees lined up on the highway doing like 50 miles an hour. I get it. 50 is fast in this thing. If you watch the Winding Road magazine version of this drive, that's when I first picked it up. I was very uncomfortable with it, and you can probably see it in my driving style that I'm terrified. I've had it for maybe like 60 miles now, and I really like it. I don't know, I think I've really gotten used to it. I've communed with it, I've bonded with it. This is not bad. I like the Hummer, I like the H1. It's not exactly neighborhood friendly. You kind of feel a little like a jerk driving it through your little neighborhood, and you know, if people are running, you're like trying not to coal roll them. But the children go nuts for it. You drive by a couple kids, like this is as good as an excavator. definitely need the driveway space. The guy who owns it actually has like a fairly normal sized garage, and he manages to just fit it. For me, I am just going to leave it here near the M5. So that's going to do it for the H1. Thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one.